99, unmatched. User average of 91 with an average of 95. It's got elite community ranks. IMBD, it was ranked 5. IGN, it was ranked 3. Reddit, it was ranked 4. Plus wins across DICE and BAFTA. It is across all pillars, critically, community ranked, and it is the most comprehensive list of top 20 games of all time. This project was a deceptively simple question. What does the greatest of all time actually mean when we try to measure it objectively? So rather than arguing taste or nostalgia, this is an analysis that treats games as cultural artifacts that must survive time, reevaluation, and changing standards. The goal isn't to crown a personal favorite, but to identify games that retain consensus across critics, players, and institutions, even decades later. So here is essentially the methodology. So 3-pillar evaluation model. The critical scores capture professional evaluation, but they're time sensitive and sometimes trend driven. So there is what's the latest hotness, and that's can be inflated with some scores. Community lists capture long-term cultural memory, but can overrepresent popularity. Its popularity is a factor, but not a deciding variable that should influence the overall adjustments. Awards represent institutional recognition, but are often uneven across eras. Games that were not around for certain award representations, or games awards often can favor a specific style of game, and then it can exclude the potential of other games to be ranked. One of the most important findings is that the list doesn't behave chaotically with the data. Across multiple weighting scenarios, the same core group of games keeps repeating. Positions move slightly, but titles very rarely jump between tiers. There's tiers of where games sit at the top elite levels. Within those tiers, games do sort of adjust and wiggle a little bit, but they don't move across those bands. 12 games that survive all weighting models. And by weighting models, that means that we had the 3 pillars of critical, community, and awards or institutional, those 3 points. Those were given weightings in different scenarios. If we put the weight more towards community scores, where does the game rank? If we put the weighting more towards institutional award shows, where does the game rank? And those were varied, and I ran 9 different scenarios, 9 different interpretations of those, took those rankings, and it was a mixture of all of those different weightings across the different areas to sort of get a final part. So no game that was positive in a particular area outshone because of that. I will present the top 20 games of all time. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is the greatest game of all time, and I will not argue with that. I will not debate that. I can say, as I went through this process, Ocarina of Time very clearly was always going to be number 1. It was consistently ranked at the top of the list. I can confidently say that the global perspective and perception across every meaningful measurement, Zelda Ocarina of Time is the greatest game that has ever been made. And I will not be convinced otherwise. And if you don't believe that, that is fine. Personal choice is not invalid. If you don't think it's the game, that's fine. You may not like it. You may not think that it holds up. You may not think that it is as great as it was. But statistically, you are absolutely in the minority. And if you put 100 people in a room and you ask them what's the greatest game of all time, the majority of those people are going to say Ocarina of Time. So statistically, you are in the minority. Doesn't mean you're wrong. Doesn't mean your interests have to change. Does not mean your perspective has to change. But mathematically, research-based, statistically, the top game is Zelda. So Ocarina of Time remains the clearest anchor. Not just critically unmatched, but also deeply embedded in long-term community memory and institutional validations. It is the dataset's strongest all-time out. A Metacritic score of 99. Now, remember, a Metacritic score is not just a one-off score. It is evaluation across lots of different critical points. 99. Unmatched. User average of 91 with an average of 95. It's got elite community ranks. IMBD it was ranked 5. IGN it was ranked 3. Reddit it was ranked 4. Plus wins across DICE and BAFTA. It is across all pillars. Critically. Community ranked. Ranked 2. Another Zelda game. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Elite critics. Average of 93. The dataset's most powerful single community list signal. IGN number 1 and broad awards dominance with 4 wins across major shows. 2 Zelda games, first and second. Even Breath of the Wild isn't my top game. Neither of these Zelda games are my top game. I prefer Tears of the Kingdom across both of these. But I can't deny the fact that they're both phenomenal. So Breath of the Wild is the second most ranked game. Zelda is just really good at being across multiple opinions, multiple perspectives. Half-Life 2 is ranked 3. A rare triple pillar classic. The average is 93.5 across its list presence, across its critical scores. Rankings at 19 and 4, and one of the best award profiles. DICE, BAFTA, Games Dev Choice, all 3 wins. So that is it, Half-Life 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is ranked 4. Is the most interesting modern case. Its award dominance is unprecedented, but it's intentionally prevented from overtaking older titles until it proves long-term stability. This list is not set in stone. There is a chance for obviously new games to come out and unseat some of these games, and some of the more modern games a chance to settle and see how well they withstand the test of time. Modern benchmark for awards. Average of 94, IMDb 3, it's the biggest award sweep in the dataset with 5 wins. It won across all game categories. So you just see people play it online. Lots of people will talk very fondly of Baldur's Gate 3. Ranked 4 of all time. And number 5, another one that people are like, no, this can't be right, but yes. The Last of Us. The Last of Us sits here because it balances prestige, popularity, and awards without relying on a single metric. It is a well-balanced. Still high prestige in community scores. The ranks 2, 5, and 7, and major institutional validations with 3 award wins. It's surprising how many people still doubt how good of a game this is. And the numbers speak for themselves. Still solidly ranked. Like, within IMDb, IGN, that's out of 250 and 500 people. That's 250 and 500 games. That includes 2025 games, and it's still ranked in that elite level status. The Reddit scores, which is like the online people that can be usually influenced by a certain style, still came out 7. I was actually surprised at how high this sat. I knew it was going to be a top 10, or I wanted and felt it was going to be a top 10, but like it fits there. You can't argue that it certainly is one of those games that fits in that top 5 range. So now we are into games 6 to 10. So this is like a sort of a tier. So this tier is where era and recency adjustments matter the most. So one of point has got Chrono Trigger and The Witcher Wild Hunt. But Chrono Trigger ranking above The Witcher 3 is often raises eyebrows. Now this is a thing that as that came up and I was going through it myself and I was questioning the data, I asked the question, Why is it ranked higher? The stats show. Because Witcher 3 appears stronger on modern lists and awards. However, Chrono Trigger has demonstrated near perfect stability for almost 30 years. It performs consistently across critics, user scores, and community lists without benefiting from modern visibility, remasters, or ongoing marketing. Red Dead Redemption 2 at number 8 is one of those games that comes up and people will say the best game of all time. It is frequently listed as the top game. Here it is, IMDb ranked number 1, Reddit ranked number 2. Okay, best selling ranking number 4, and elite critics average 93. It's slightly limited by awards. It doesn't withstand because remember it's built on 3 pillars: critical scores, user consensus, and institutional values. Now, it had one runner-up recorded, didn't win any awards. That is the thing that has held it back from performing. It also doesn't have an average that is phenomenal. It's still right around Chrono Trigger, it's right around The Witcher. Its average does not set it apart from a lot of other games in this area. Its scores about its rankings, its user scores, just indicate that it is really, really popular amongst the chatter online. It's one of those examples of it is a high trafficked conversation, lots of verbal sort of discussion about it. It's one of those names that's very topical, that shows up in a lot of people's minds, and people think, yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2, it's a phenomenal game. But it doesn't have the backing and the breadth of data to support its ranking any higher than 8. And that's where it sits, and I think that the values sort of explain why that it's there, but also why it is so hotly contested as a game that is the greatest of all time. Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, high critical standing, so Metacritic and 92, so that's an average of what, 93 as well, and a bit, so it's still right around Red Dead Redemption. IGN rankings, Reddit rankings, and it's elevated by era normalized stability weightings. So because it is an older game, it raises up because of that. Doesn't have the same opportunity for awards, for example. It doesn't miss out on that. And number 10, Elden Ring. One of the strongest award-backed moderns. 4 wins with top tier list presence. Ranked number 3 on Reddit and number 7 on IGN. Solid critics with an average of 90. Lower user scores of 84 keep it below the very top tier list. And here is a little bit of a selfish perspective on this, but I told you so. I told you so. I told you so. I fucking told you so. The user scores are so low. Do you want to know why I'm sure these user scores are so low? Because it's a Souls-like game that's too fucking hard for the average player. This score, this ranking is a comprehensive confirmation. Games that are too hard cannot be the greatest of all time because they alienate too large of a player base that can't access them, they can't participate them, they can't enjoy them. Now, I have no doubt, and I enjoyed my time with Dark Souls 3, not on the list. I enjoyed my time with Bloodborne, not on the list. I enjoyed my time with Dark Souls. Wait, no, I didn't. I fucking hate that game. Forget that. But also, not on the list. But it goes to show that like games that are accessible and available and that account for the most people are truly the greatest of all time. Every game on this list up to this point, we've got Chrono Trigger, Witcher, Red Dead, Legend of Zelda 2. We've got Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, Half-Life, Baldur's Gate 3. All of those have a difficulty threshold that everyone can at least engage with. Elden Ring, being a difficult Souls-like, does not have that engaging level of difficulty. The bar is set at a point that alienates a lot of players. And that user score is a reflection of that. And that user score is what has held it back. So when people that say Elden Ring is the greatest game of all time, those are voices coming from entrenched players that are devoted to that world, devoted to the style of play, that really get the most out of the micro learning that happens when you're playing a game that they've spent a lot of time in to master, and it's a demonstration of their skills as a gamer to be able to overcome that. I understand there's a joy in having a challenge and achieving. So the voices that explain that Elden Ring is the greatest game, it's still there. It still is ranked in the top 10. This is top 10 of all time. It's not discrediting the value of it is. But the difficulty within that game is a factor, as in all games, and it is a limiting factor for games to be truly great. These are kind of really the honorable mentions in games 11 to 20. And they'll have some information to point out in something here. So game ranked 11 to 20 are not worse games. They are less universally dominant. So most of these excel in like one or two pillars, but not across the three points that are the data sets that allow this to sort of be the consistency to rank these games. So these are games 11 to 20. So example, Minecraft dominates sales and cultural reach. Best-selling title, number 1. Rika on the prestige list, so for example, it was ranked 189 in IMDb. It is a phenomenal game that has been selling, that has longevity, but it does not have the stats to hold up in other places. Resident Evil 4, where are you? Dominates critic scores. Average 93.5, which is quite high. 93.5, and like again, this is in 0.5s of where they are. But it doesn't have any awards or any recognition and other lists, so that's what holds it back. Skyrim is a community dominated discussion. Ranked Reddit number 1. That was that data set I showed before that had over 1,600 votes. It is one of those games that is just across the internet. The fact that it's been picked up by modding communities and it is being replayed and remastered and resold, and that it is an expression of personal interests and tastes, and that you can play the game in however way you like, is a reason why it is so strongly regarded and spoken about as a great game. But it doesn't hold up in other areas. Stronger critics, so strong critics awards, but weaker community rankings. Okay, so the balance with Reddit was really high, but other rankings didn't have it quite as high, so it wasn't set, it was more sporadic. So what these games lack is simultaneous dominance across all three pillars. This is why many beloved games cluster just outside the top 10. Their excellence is real, but it's narrower. So these are games that people think, yeah, these are really good. I really like these games. But the games above them have something else that they don't. Super Mario Galaxy, average of 94, but community rankings, people didn't rank it, but critically, it was massive. Metal Gear Solid 3, exceptional critic score, 93.5, held back by awards. Final Fantasy VII, at number 11. Now, this is a game that people are like, yeah, this has got to be in that top 10. Community list powerhouse, ranked number 6 for IMDb, ranked number 11 for IGN, ranked number 12 from Reddit. It's even the rankings, you look at that, it's kind of around that 10 to sort of 13 range. Solid critic score, but the average is only 90.5 in comparison to 93s, 94s, 92s, and fewer award recognitions, even though they didn't have the ability at the time. So Final Fantasy VII, I think it's a fair fit. God of War, 2005. Strong critics, average of 92. Again, below Mario Galaxy, below Resident Evil 4, below Mass Effect 2. 3 major wins, mixed list performance. So God of War still has values within this range, but it's still I think it's a fair place at what, 11, 12, 13, at 14. Grand Theft Auto 5, commercial titan, best-selling number 2. Awards, lists, It's not there. It's a game that it's been out for so long, so that does sort of influence its best selling. It's been so topical for so long because it's been out, so that influences where it is. But when push comes to shove and people are asked, where do you rank this game as your favorite? It's not getting the lists. It's not getting the recognition. Portal 2, so Mass Effect 2, sorry. Near Elite Critics, so 92.5, that's really up there. Because the average of 92.5 is good, but everything, like the top 10 above it are better. It's as simple as that. So this is one of those games that one of those rankings that when I brought it up, people say, well, surely Minecraft and Skyrim should be a top 10. And as much as I really like Skyrim, Portal 2 was phenomenal. Minecraft, you can't argue its impact in gaming. The numbers are just the numbers just shake out that this is where it fits. They may be beloved, but the games above them are just better. These are the shared traits of the top tier. This is across every stress test. So we ran, again, like I said, about 9 different stress tests across different weightings. So across every stress test, a core group of roughly 12 games refuses to disappear. So these titles survive changes in weighting, removal of awards, community list reshuffling, and era segmentation. So that top 10 list is pretty guaranteed. Certainly the top 5 is where it is. And there's a core group of that top 12 games that are very solid across all of these. That persistence is the strongest evidence that the list is measuring consensus durability, and it's not an opinion-based list. So rank order matters less here than membership. So you can sort of argue the finer points across like where games fit. Stability under testing. So ranking holds firm under alternate weighting. So they went through different weighting models and methodologies to sort of see where they rank. So here, key observation. So rank changes can occur within the canonical groups, but not outside of it. So the top list is remarkably stable regardless of methodology. Some exclusions and sort of 2025 titles and where they fit. Super Metroid, Tetris, Mario 64, Bloodborne, Metroid Prime, Uncharted 2, Astrobot, and GTA San Andreas. Some games that kind of flagged up as some of these were games that I sort of questioned myself about where they fit and why aren't they there. Notably Tetris, Mario 64, and kind of asked why aren't they on the list? This is like a universal. And the 2025 titles and why they weren't there. For 2025 titles like Clair Obscura or Silksong, the issues are different. So they score extremely high today, but they lack multi-year community validation. They appear on too few independent lists. That's including the ones that some of these games actually do have lists that they were on, so they were captured in some of that data. And award data is incomplete or provisional, which is where I have a point to bring up about one of these games. At my first data collection, the awards tallies had not been finalized or published in all examples. And before this stream, and before I sort of had got this, I went back and did a final check of the datas, like the data sets and the awards, and see if it had been updated. And there has been some updated data points, basically. So of all these games, Clair Obscura really is the only one that has performance that indicates the potential of being into the top 20 range. Which at this point we'll come over to breaking news, an adjusted list. The list within it does not change. There was a new award that had not been updated. So Clair Obscura with the additional award that cemented it sort of, it helped, the award helped balance out that pillar that was holding it back. Because at the time it only had the Game of the Year awards, which within that system won plenty, but it didn't have any recognition across other award categories for the year. I've since updated that, and now for all the people that hated it and said it's not there, and this list doesn't work, and it's got to be in that top list, there it is. Clair Obscura is ranked 12 under the new evaluation with the Game Awards. 12. Not number 1, not top 5, not even top 10, a solid 12. Elder Scrolls, that means drops just everything just shuffles down a place and Elder Scrolls drops out of the top 20. The greatest of all time requires long-term cross-pillar validation. So no single metric can capture the enduring greatness. True canonical status emerges only from sustained excellence across critical reception, community recognition, and institutional validation. So the key takeaway is that greatness is not about peaks, it's about persistence. So the strongest games are those that continue to rank highly decades later, that survive generational shifts, and that remain relevant without needing reinterpretation. So this top 20 again is not a fixed forever, but it is defensible. It is a research-based, defensible list. Future games obviously can come in and enter this, but only by doing what the current canon has already done. Prove themselves over time. Final statement. This list represents what survives repeated evaluation, debate, and time. Not what performs best in any single moment. These are the games that endure.